Welcome to the Now. I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm John Reisinger.
Between the release of Final Fantasy 15 and The Last Guardian, we've seen the end of over 17 years of collective development in the last 2 weeks alone.
That's a
cool. Lot of development.
Yeah. Now that The Last Guardian's release date is upon us, it's time to put nearly a decade of Bird Cat hype to the test and find out whether or not the game is any good.
Bird Cat? I think it's Bird Dog.
It's a giant bird dog.
An awesome bird dog. The answer to the question of if it's good, well, besides does it have a bird dog, is kind of a mixed bag, honestly, which is probably less than we were all hoping for.
Yeah.
The Last Guardian is rocking an 83 on Metacritic at the time of writing, which is not a bad number, for sure, but there are also a number of reports about crippling performance problems with the only reliable performance happening on the PS4 Pro, so hope you got one of those.
Awesome. So the delays were just because they needed a console powerful enough to run the damn game, right? That's why they did it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, great. But first, let's talk about the review scores. That 83 on Metacritic puts it at a slightly lower score than the average of previous Team ICO games. 2005 Shadow of the Colossus pulled down a 91, while 2001's ICO averaged a 90.
Of all the major review outlets, there was a little bit of a split. On the high end were Attack of the Fanboy, Games Radar, and GameSpot, who scored it at 4.5 stars, or 9 out of 10.
That's good.
GameSpeak gave it an 85 out of 100, and Destructoid gave it an 8.5 out of 10, which is the same thing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, US Gamer awarded 4 out of 5 stars, while 6 Axis and Game Informer knocked it down to 8 out of 10, and Polygon, EGM, IGN, and the Jimquisition graded it a 7.5, 7.5, 7, and 6.5, all out of 10.
I feel like we're going on like Olympics right
now.
In general, the game's reviews tend to break down into 2 categories. Those who can forgive the game's technical problems and those who can't.
Yeah.
Tech Wizard's Digital Foundry posted an analysis of the game that was echoed in a number of reviews, which reported stuttering and terrible frame rates on the base PS4, sometimes going as far down as the single digits.
That's not good.
This isn't even an argument at this point about can it get 30 frames per second or can it get 60 frames per second, it's can it get 10.
Yeah. After testing the game in multiple resolutions between the PS4 and PS4 Pro, Digital Foundry concluded the only option available to PlayStation gamers in getting a regularly smooth 30 FPS is to use PlayStation 4 Pro running at 1080p. If you're on a regular PS4, you're in for a very variable experience, lurching between 20 to 30 FPS just by running around empty areas, and with stutters to over 110 ms.
They went on to say, after such a protracted development stretch, the conclusion is that PlayStation 4 Pro comes across as the only machine capable of delivering the ideal experience.
And for many reviewers, those frame rate problems were exacerbated by poor controls. Jim Sterling wrote in his review, "I wish I could say I love the game, that it's plagued by only minor setbacks, but I cannot honestly do that. I can't look back at how much time was spent not enjoying myself, at how much time was spent actively wrestling with the game to wring anything worthwhile from it, and say I played the masterpiece many are going to say it is."
Ouch.
He wants to.
Honest though.
Yeah.
All that prefacing aside, however, many critics found a lot of things to celebrate about the game, namely its beautiful art direction and animation, the mysterious world, and most essentially, the relationship between the boy and bird dog Trico.
Yeah, and the boy says it's just the cutest little thing. Sorry, I love the little character. The noise, the sound design of the game is good. I'd say that.
And those are all things that Team ICO's known for doing well before, too. Like, that's why people like their games, and their control schemes have never been their strong point.
Let's start with that, because for many reviewers, it was the core component that made The Last Guardian a worthwhile and downright emotional experience, at least when it worked. For the most part, the entire game breaks down into puzzles and sections that you and Trico solve together, all while evading enemy shadow guards.
IGN praised Trico, writing, "Watching Trico grow from a scared savage beast to an immensely loyal protector provides a wonderful character arc. When he behaved as he should, I found myself legitimately on my way to forgetting that Trico wasn't a living, breathing creature."
Yeah, Games Radar echoed those sentiments, stating, "It's a huge pleasure to spend time with Trico, who is realized with extraordinary subtlety and attention to detail. He is a transcendent piece of design. The value of the evolving relationship with the creatures far exceeds the simplistic trappings of a puzzle platformer and makes up for the game's pronounced technical issues."
From the sound of it, Trico's animal nature was both a blessing and a curse for reviewers. Trico is beautifully and realistically animated in a way that's often awe-inspiring. His His animal instincts influence the gameplay too. He eventually learns to trust you, which means he'll be more ready to accept your commands as the game goes along.
He's so cute. For some reviewers, this was a good thing. GameSpot said, this is gratifying from a gameplay perspective since you feel less like you're wasting time investigating the world and more like you're working in a concert with a reliable partner. As an emotionally invested player, your patience is handsomely rewarded by the formation of an unwavering bond.
However, this mechanic wasn't without its downsides, as it means Trico often gives zero fucks about what you want him to do, especially early on before he learns to trust you, leading to moments of rage. EGM said of Trico, sometimes it's difficult to tell if Trico isn't jumping up somewhere because it's not part of the puzzle and Trico can't, or because it is part of the puzzle and Trico won't.
And this was resoundingly agreed upon by lots of reviewers. It wasn't uncommon to see a critic complain about not being able to find a solution to a given puzzle for a long time, only to find out later on they were right from the very beginning. Only sometimes Trico had simply decided not to do the solution.
Oh, that doesn't sound frustrating at all. However, the controls are just as often to blame as Trico, which can make things doubly frustrating. Polygon wrote, "You're playing as an awkward kid, and the game goes out of its way to make it feel like it. He stumbles when he runs, he has trouble holding onto Trico's feathers with both hands. Good luck pushing a box in a straight line."
Fortunately, the game doesn't rely much on twitch response and quick movement to make progression, which is about the only saving grace once you start adding the frame rate problems as well.
In addition to Digital Foundry's report, a number of reviews mentioned also made note of the game's frame rate issues. Attack of the Fanboy said, "Most of the time the game runs fine enough, but if there is any extra action or the environment opens up in some way, things can get really bad. At certain points, the game felt more like a slideshow, slowing down considerably."
Games Radar was a little more blunt. The PlayStation 4 can barely handle The Last Guardian in some sections. Outdoors, the frame rate frequently dips, and in some sections, absolutely tanks trying to render vast amounts of crumbling architecture.
That being said, much of these frame rate complaints have to do with the game's sprawling environments, many of which reviewers found to be gorgeous and well designed, which is good since you spend a lot of time looking at skill shots.
What, frame by frame?
It's an amazing world for the player to get lost in and explore, and much of its ruined beauty would have been hard to render on previous generation consoles, or even some current ones.
Yeah, and really that seems to the conclusion most reviewers draw from the game. Between the detail and behavior of Trico, plus the ambitious set pieces, it seems totally plausible that The Last Guardian was hit with delay after delay. Whether or not you'll find enjoyment is going to depend on your patience for the game's unique mechanics, and if you can find a way to ignore some of the frame rate problems, or just go buy a PS4 Pro apparently.
And maybe still ignore.
Because that's a solution.
But if you're able to set those things aside, and if you have the PS4 Pro, The Last Guardian is a truly unique game with a tremendous story about two unlikely friends, and if you can stick it out, the game will reward you for your efforts, especially if you're a fan of Team ICO's previous outings. Fortunately, if you're thinking about getting it, there's not long to wait, because it'll be out tomorrow.
So, what do you guys think of the early review scores for The Last Guardian? Think you can get it? Think you can pass on it? Think you need to ask Grandma for a PS4 Pro? Let us know in the comments.
And for more updates on the biggest game releases, like this video and subscribe to The Know. You think your grandma's gonna buy a PS4 Pro?
My grandmas are dead.
So the answer is no then.
That's a no.
That's a hard no.
Agaro. That's what he says. Agaro.
I regret not paying attention to the read because you just insulted the best horse in video games.
It's the best horse!
It's
Ever.
fine.
I'm glad